All right, good afternoon. Thanks for staying tuned. Welcome to this afternoon's lineup of coverage of May 29, 2019. 20 years down the line, the first time we had this was May 29, 1999. That looks like ages ago now, and at that time, it was President Olusegun Obasanjo. But this time, it's President Muhammadu Buhari, and he's already taken the oath of office. As you've been hearing, quite a lot of people were surprised that he didn't give any speech at the end of the oath-taking ceremony. But then we had been told before now that this event is particularly low-key and that a lot of the festivities are being reserved for 2 weeks' time, which will be June 12, the first celebration of Democracy Day on that day. My name is Ladi Akeredoluwale, and I'm not alone.
That's right. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Thanks, Ladi. Indeed, it's been interesting, you know, looking at the whole thing today. Even though they talked about the fact that it would be low key, but we did see the military, all the forces come out
as commander-in-chief.
And I think it's very interesting for us as civilians. We don't actually know how much they do and how difficult it is to get that done. And then looking at how it all started, they started on time, they ended on time as well.
Indeed.
And I think it was good. It was nice.
It was good, it was simple, it was straightforward. The lawyers would probably say it fulfilled all the constitutional requirements.
Yes.
The oath-taking ceremony, the Chief Justice, and everything else. What people missed was the pomp, the usual pomp.
Maybe
and,
the air display.
That's it,
like
the
that.
aerial displays, the probably march past displays,
and
the
people are now thinking,
and so on.
If he doesn't have an inaugural speech on June the 12th, would that then be the inaugural, or would that be the general speech?
Well, from what we are told, I guess everybody knows that May 29 is sacrosanct because of the Constitution. The swearing-in has to take place today. Any other thing that takes place after today is at the discretion of a number of people, and then, of course, the whole issue of Democracy Day and all of that. And this time, maybe because it's the first time that it's going to be celebrated on June the 12th, a lot of the festivities are being pushed.
Yes, especially like invitation of
dignitaries, the foreign heads of state and all of that is being pushed to June the 12th.
But it was also good to see our team on ground as well. You did hear Larry say, for those who are not here and all that, it was tough in terms of protocol.
Oh, it did. And security was extremely tight. For such a simple, straightforward ceremony, the security was extremely tight.
Yeah.
Eagle Square was under lock and key
and they kept giving different instructions for the press for where to stay.
Stay and move and all of that. Again, I mean, none of this too surprising. Security is one of the main challenges that everybody is.
What we're going to do is try to show you just what the Vice President and the President did earlier on today, just in case you missed it. We have it for you. Let's look at that before we do anything else.
Yemi Osinbajo. Do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that as Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I will discharge my duties to the best of my ability, faithfully and in accordance with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the law and always in the interest of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being and the prosperity of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I, Muhammadu Buhari, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I will discharge my duties to the best of my ability, faithfully and in accordance with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal to any person any matter which shall be brought under my consideration or shall become known to me as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, except as may be required for due discharge of my duties as President. So help me God.
All right, there you have it, the constitutional requirement of swearing in, taking the oath of office, both the Vice President first, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and then President Muhammadu Buhari taking the oath of office earlier on today. As Ijoma did point out earlier, all this was done on time, and therefore quite a number of people were caught unawares by the speed and the simplicity that attended this entire event.
And also to say that our cameras are all over the state. We're covering
the
same thing. Yes.
29 states.
Zamfara, Lagos, Ogun. We've seen quite a few.
Indeed.
Yes.
And hopefully during the course of this program, this segment of the program, we'll be taking some field reports from some of those
That's right.
locations.
Just to let you know how it went across the country today.
Now, at this point, we're being joined in the studios by both from our Abuja studios and from our Lagos studios. Maybe we should start from the Abuja studios. Senator Olorunimbe Mamora, the former Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly and indeed distinguished Senator, I believe, of the 6th Assembly, is in our Abuja studios. Senator Mamora, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
And we also have in our Abuja studios there, Professor Jideofor Adibe. Professor Jideofor Adibe, thank you so much for joining us here on the inauguration.
Thank you very much.
In Lagos here, we have Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Olumide Fusika. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, we have Mr. Kemi Ogunyemi, who is a women advocate. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Maybe we should, let me start with you, the lawyer. We'll be talking about constitutional requirements and some level of confusion between June 12 and May 29. June 12 is Democracy Day. May 29 is Inauguration Day. That's been done today, from what you saw.
Yes, the constitutional requirement has been satisfied. There's no way you could say because the president is returning, I mean, there will be no conflict or whatever. But what of the states where you are changing governors? There's no way any, the tenure, the 4 years of any of the elected officials can start any time later than today. And I don't know why people are, so much interested in the celebration and all that. And should we really be celebrating, really? I mean, you've pointed out two things that happened today. The first one is that the event started to time and ended when it should end. Quite unusual for us in Nigeria.
Indeed.
So if that is a sign of things to come, then we should be hopeful. And then we shouldn't be having Owambe or party or whatever.
So we should hope, we should be hopeful, but we shouldn't celebrate. Is that what you're saying?
No, I said if that is, if we can take
If those
that,
two events.
yes, if it's a sign of things to come, then we can have some hope. To say a program is starting by 7 and you actually start by 7, it's unusual in our climb. And given what has been going on in the last, I won't say in the last 4 years, given what we have experienced in times past, we expect that those who are elected will begin, get their hands dirty immediately and stop. There's no time for, what do they call it, balls?
Yes.
Inauguration balls and all that. There's no time for that. There should be a sense of urgency. We are surrounded by, we are under siege, let me put it that way. So what time do we have to be celebrating? So if the president is saying we're not celebrating today, we want to start to walk. Well, the last time he said we are not for anybody or we are for...
We're for everybody.
Well,
we're not
for...
for...
he didn't, I won't say it proved that way, But if these symbolic things that are taking place today, no unnecessary celebration, you wanted to start a program at a particular time and you actually started at that time, we could take that as some positive signs of things to come. And we hope that that will be followed up and we'll begin to see things, the way they should be in this country.
So, let me bring it to you now. Yes, we've seen what has transpired today, the handover and all that. Let's talk about the process leading to this point, since you're a women advocate, etc. Do you see everything all right with the process leading us to this point, from our politics, from the elections, etc., leading up to this May 29th?
Yeah, I think it actually depends on where you're looking at it from. So from a woman's perspective, we did have quite a few women that were hoping to be elected, but the process was not advantageous to women. So we had the primaries, there were some women, and somehow, some way, through different parties, not just the main parties, but there were side steps. So it was like, okay, where are the women? So yes, we did have some successes in some women from different states, from Lagos, from Oyo states, and even up in the north. But from the women's point of view, it wasn't enough. So financially, women were, sidestepped. Even in the process of the different parties, it's as if it was when I talked to a lot of women that actually participated in the elective part of it. It was like we were just at a disadvantage. We didn't have access.
What do you say to the fact that we constantly talk about the fact that there should be more participation? This is May 29. The new tenure has begun. Is there a gender plan for doing things differently? Because there's a lot of talk about, we're not allowed, it's so expensive. But then do you see the plan?
Yeah. For me, I think the plan starts now. So 2023 starts now, as in when the election finished, that was when we started planning, we should start planning for 2023. I think one of the issues we had was that people started like, it's time for election.
And so
let's start. And you have a poster. And as a woman, I'd love to see more women, but I'm not going to vote for you just because you're a woman. I'm going to look at what are you about. You've got to sell yourself, but you don't start a month or 3 months before the election. You start now, you join, you have structure, you learn. So for women who are interested in elective positions, they have to, for lack of a better word, be trained. Do you know what governance is all about? Do you know what you're getting yourself into? Are you prepared for the rigors. It's not
But do
easy
people
being
ask
a politician.
those questions of the men? That is always, do we ask them, are you prepared? Are you ready? They just show up and
They are
that's
prepared,
it.
but they are. So we need the men to show the way as well, but we need to get in there. There's a gender inequality in politics. It's pretty obvious. So we need to start now educating ourselves, getting prepared, knowing what government is all about, knowing what the parties are all about. Choose your parties. You must know what their manifesto is. You must know what you're getting into and why are you going into it. What's your area of special? What is it that you want to... And then get into community work. Most of the women that failed, it's not because they didn't have, not necessarily have experience or money, but who knows which party do you belong to? Are you right there? Do you have structure?
Do
the
they know
community
you?
people know you? Do the grassroots? Elections are for grassroots people. They are the ones who vote, and I believe more women vote than men. So you need to link up with the people. Let them know you. Do you have a ward? Do you know what your constituency is? You don't just come up and say, I want to be... Now, for the men, yes, there is gender bias as far as I'm concerned when it comes to politics, but how do we overcome that? By getting involved right from now. So we've got 4 years. So in 2023, you're going to see more women, and you'll hear more about them, and hopefully you'll be more successful.
Hopefully we'll hear more about them.
Yes,
Hopefully.
absolutely, you will.
Yeah.
Let's go to our Abuja studios, and Senator Mamora, this, I don't know if you want to call it controversy or confusion, the difference between May 29 and June 12. While there are those, and I'm sure you'd like to be counted amongst them, who are happy that June 12 is being given proper recognition now, and even to this time around, it's going to be when all the festivities are going to take place. The ideals that underpin June 12, are they reflected in what is happening today?
Well, I think June 12 is a watershed in the history of this country, and it just cannot be wished away. It represents that point in history when people put aside ethnic and religious issues to come together to vote massively for one man. And we never had it that good before in the history of this country.
Some will argue, Senator Mamora, some will argue that, just as you said, we didn't have it as good as that before then, and that we haven't had it as good as that since then.
Well, I think the issue is that, well, call it a kind of a situation this time around that this is a moment of transition as dictated by the provision of the Constitution. The end of a 4-year term and the beginning of another one. So this today just stands for that. But June 12, in terms of democracy, you know, the government of the people, by the people, for the people itself, a point in time where people came together, it's a reflection of a point in time in history. So it's been separated now, and the celebration will still come on June 12 as Democracy Day. Don't forget that hitherto, it's this time, 29th of May, that have been regarded as Democracy Day from 1999. So there is a change now to accord the true importance to that day, which is June 12. So if there are no celebration as such, and if it's not even right to say no celebration, it's just a low-key one to now separate it from June 12, which is really the day of celebration of democracy. I think that is the issue.
All right, let me bring it to you, Professor Jideofor, if you can hear me. You constantly hear the problems we have in the country, okay, beyond the corruption problem, which is apparent, you constantly hear, oh, we have a leadership crisis, we have a leadership problem. And now we're on the brink of a new, let me say, a new day, same regime, but a new day. What sort of direction would you want to see this administration go, even if you pick something as simple as the fight against corruption, for instance? What sort of direction would you like to see now, being a leadership expert?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would have liked to make one or two comments about what the distinguished senator said about June 12th. I think there are myths and realities concerning June 12th. Some of the myths, some people tend to say it was an indication that the country was willing to support a Muslim ticket, that Nigerians were religion and ethnically blind and chose somebody they consider the best. I think that was a myth. When people make such arguments, they divorce that discourse from the context of what happened. What happened then was that there was a prolonged period of military rule, and the southern faction of the political class were agitated that the northern faction, held power for so long. So there was this strong desire for a power shift to the south. That's one thing. And as it so happened, there was Abiola being a Muslim was quite acceptable to the Muslims in the north. That unique context must not be, overlooked when we want to discuss whether Muslim or Christian ticket could fly in the country. So the desire by people from the south, if you want to use that terminology, to have power shift. The fact that Abiola was seen as very generous to all sections, especially of the country, the fact that he was Muslim and accepted to the people in the north. So it's a different context. So that's one of the myths when people start talking about it has happened before. The second thing, which is actually the reality, is that when the election was annulled and Nadeko and the other democracy movements sprang up, that showed an indication of a willingness on the part of Nigerians to challenge autocracy. And that is a takeaway from that. So no matter whatever people will say, we still owe gratitude to those who were in the vanguard of that struggle. That's the good takeaway from that. But there's also the myth that people should not extract out of the context of what happened. Now back to your question. I am one of those who was disappointed about what happened today. The Honorable San did mention that it was a good indication that the event started as scheduled and ended as scheduled. That's one way of looking at it, looking at the cup as half full rather than half empty. There are some of us who are expecting that today, that is the inauguration, that you come around, make key policy pronouncements that will give hope, that will give an indication of the direction your government will go. That is the leadership question you raised. So the inauguration came and went. We have no clue. Some of us, we are looking around to have an insight who are going to be the inner aides, the advisors of the president. That will then give us an indication of whether there's going to be a neat break from what happened in the first term. I didn't see that. Perhaps we still remain hopeful that maybe by midnight, before the day runs out, he will announce key members of the cabinet. We all know that what happened in the first term, that this 6-month delay, there was no sense of urgency in the government.
You can hear me, I know you can. But when we had this discussion yesterday, we were told that it takes a bit of time. They have to be screened and approved. It's not something you can announce in a day or two. That was what we were told in terms of swearing in, etc. So perhaps you couldn't have expected that today. I don't know. But do you think that perhaps maybe June 12th, we might hear some sort of inaugural address and an idea of what you're talking about?
With due respect, I don't buy that idea. There are so many positions you don't need clearance from the National Assembly. Your inner cabinet, your kitchen cabinet, you don't need clearance to make policy pronouncements. So I'm not too sure I buy that. And moreover, inauguration is different from today. May 29th is the inauguration. Today indicates the end of one tenure and the beginning of another. Democracy Day is merely the ceremonial part of it. You cannot equate the ceremony with, this is the law. Today says, this is the constitutionally the end of your first term. So there must be some kind of landmark statements and pronouncements that will give people an indication of your direction today, not days after. And moreover, don't forget the elections ended. The elections did not end yesterday. So we had this ample time for, in fact, actually before the results were announced and the president had been in office, you ought to have known a few people you should work with. You should have known some of the statements, the security crisis, insecurity across the country. There are key policy pronouncements that will give hope and be able to at least get people talking and start refining it as a roadmap on where to go.
Mr. Fusika, you agree with that? That you're expecting to hear some sort of policy pronouncement, or at least who is going to be where?
Well, I think that my view is that we hear policy pronouncements all the time. You know, during the campaigns, they were making promises, we'll do this, we'll do that. I don't think there's anything he's going to say today that will be materially different from whatever he has said. And for Prof, I said they started on, they scheduled a program and they actually started when it was supposed to start. He sees that as, Prof sees that as in the glass half full. You know. But that should, I would take that as indicating too that we won't wait for 6 months, you know,
before we see the cabinet.
Ministers.
Do you think there'll be that much of a change? Do you think you're, just speculating now?
Well, it's difficult to understand the president. If the past 4 years is anything to go back, very difficult to understand, I won't join in saying this is what he's going to do, this is not what is, I think we should just watch. Maybe in another couple of days, things would, he knows, for instance,
begin to speed up.
Well, begins to speed up. I would think that we won't wait for 6 months this time around.
Before we get
the urgency of the situation, the need to, move. And if it's, 4 years ago, he was 4 years younger. Yes. Today is 4 years older than he was
4 years ago.
So you expect slower speed than it was 4 years
ago.
Yes, slower speed. I mean, his age. I mean, but we are hoping that he will surround himself with people who are much younger.
You're just amused.
Who are much younger, who will, compliment him, make him, give him some, some energy to.
I'm coming to ask you. I'm coming to ask you, but after the break, and I want you to think about this.
Yes.
In 2015, there was so much hope, particularly about the inclusion of women. Women are regarded as competent and so on, and that there would be more women.
Yes.
That did not really materialize. In 2019, even fewer women were elected into positions. And yet there's this clamor that there is a requirement of 35% inclusion. The president has not committed himself to that. He didn't commit himself to that in 2015.
Hence my question of the plan.
Now, do you have hope, like Mr. Fushika, that, maybe...
Did I say I have hope?
You said we should be hopeful.
You said we should be hopeful.
I didn't say I have hope. I said,
that will be after the break, anyway. That will be after the break.